Interesting who they are, who made this complaint. These are former experts for the Drug Enforcement Agency, for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Connecticut, for major compliance, for major Wall Street firms. These are people that live and breathe tax law and good governance, and they put together this complaint. They assembled a lot of internal documents from the Clinton Foundation. Perhaps most importantly, 2 legal reviews that the Clinton Foundation did on itself. And what they found is that the Clinton Foundation itself, its own lawyers, warned that there was a strong possibility that donors were being made promises of quid pro quo favors from Secretary Clinton when she was in the Obama administration in return for gifts to the foundation. They warned that there was a culture of non-compliance, not wanting to comply with the law, with the rules that the foundation had to follow. They said that Bill Clinton's personal interest in his commingling of his personal business with the foundation posed a grave threat to the foundation itself. These are not Republicans. These are not partisans saying it. These are internal documents of lawyers hired by the Clinton Foundation to find out what was going on wrong in the foundation. This is what they found. So these investigators assemble all this evidence. They then go and they interview the current CFO, the longtime CFO of the Clinton Foundation, a guy named Andy Kessel. And they do this in November 16, and they take him out to dinner or lunch in New York, and they begin asking him, hey, are there problems here? And according to their memo, their interview memo after they met with him, Kessel makes several spontaneous claims that he can't control Bill Clinton, that people have been trying to stop him from commingling personal business with the foundation, but nobody can control him. And he makes the most provocative of statements, allegedly, if you believe this memo, in which he says, I know where all the bodies are buried at the Clinton Foundation. So they assemble all this evidence. They give it to the IRS in August 16. They give it to the Maine Justice Department of Donald Trump's Justice Department in October 2017. And then in early 2018, they're called by the FBI in Little Rock, and they provide the evidence to the FBI in Little Rock, which means the main apparatus, the IRS, and the FBI and the Justice Department now have access to all of these allegations of wrongdoing.
What is happening? I mean, look, John, you're talking about 6,000 pages, 95 exhibits, a 48-page submission. And the evidence, as I read in your article, seems overwhelming and incontrovertible here. How has it been sitting for a year, especially in light of we already know the issue of Hillary's violation of the Espionage Act by having that mom-and-pop shop server we had top secret, classified information on it. That's a violation of the Espionage Act, obstructing justice as it relates to how she deleted emails, washed her hard drive clean, and had devices broken up. They seem to skate every time. You're describing literally systematic violations of every charitable contribution law imaginable here, including IRS violations. They're sitting on that for a year? Who's looking into it?
Yep. Well, that's a great question. I think we're going to get a very important answer. I want to put a special date on your calendar. Next Thursday, Mark Meadows, Chairman Mark Meadows, the House Subcommittee on the House Oversight Committee, is going to have a hearing. These two of the whistleblowers who helped form this complaint and did all this investigative work are going to testify for the first time in public. And they've asked the Justice Department to come in and say, what have you done with this? Mr. Huber, John Huber, the special U.S. attorney who President Clinton's former attorney general, Jeff Sessions, named a year ago, what have you done? How much money have you spent? Bob Mueller spent tens of millions of dollars. What have you done to look at these allegations? And we may get our first answer in public to what the Justice Department has done. Now, we have some hints in my story. We know that the FBI not only had contact with these whistleblowers, but I am able to confirm from Clinton Foundation sources that Kessel, the CFO, the guy who ran the finances, was interviewed by the FBI in 2017. We know that Doug Campbell, the undercover informant for the that was undercover in the Russian nuclear, he was interviewed by the same Little Rock FBI. Yeah, Uranium One informant. So we do see some activity, and if I had to guess from my reporting, if there is action going on, it's centered in Little Rock, Arkansas. But for the first time, Congress is going to put the Trump Justice Department's own officials, their feet to the fire, and we're going to get an answer. Have you done anything? How much have you spent on this? Is there illegality, or should we drop this line of inquiry with the Clinton Foundation? Next Thursday could be the day we get our answer.
The people that you've spoken to on the legal side, do they see laws violated?
They do. And so I sent this to a half dozen former FBI, IRS experts who focused in charity fraud and financial fraud. And all of them said to a T, If this walked into my door, it would give me a predicate for opening a criminal investigation of the Clinton Foundation and perhaps individuals inside of it. Every one of them said that. I think one of them, Jeff Danik, very well-known, decorated FBI agent, made some of the most complex financial fraud cases in the history of the Bureau, said, I would open up on this in a second based on what these good investigators put together in this private document.
Back-to-back huge bombshells by John Solomon. We're going to have you back tomorrow and the rest of the week into next week to get into this more deeply. John, thank you.
Sean.
All right, joining us with more reaction, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes is with us. First, do you have any reaction to what you just heard from John Solomon? And then I want to go to his big breaking report from yesterday.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, Sean. I mean, we have actively been looking into the Clinton Foundation, Uranium One. If you may remember that we assigned a task force leader, Peter King from New York, to look into this. So we have seen some troubling information on this, and I can't verify John's reporting. He always does a good job. He has great sources, and I'm sure there's much more to be learned on it.
Let me go back to his breaking news yesterday. What we discovered, apparently, and I don't know how this was not known when we go back 2 years now, pretty much investigating this whole issue, the Clinton bought and paid for phony dossier, et cetera. What we now have found out, there is an email chain or a chain of emails. James Comey is on it, top DOJ officials are on it, and they knew, and the Intel community had massive questions about the veracity, the truthfulness, the validity of the dossier, which your memo and the Grassley-Graham memo point to as the bulk of the applications for the FISA warrant against Carter Page. When did you first find out about this email chain?
Well, I don't know that the email chain in John's reporting is the same stuff that we're looking at, although it sounds very similar. What we have been saying, and this is when as high as the Speaker of the House, we have been requesting for many months now, and I actually talked about it on your show a couple weeks ago, that there are emails where there are redactions that we are quite convinced that if that is unredacted and provided to the House of Representatives, to the Intelligence Committee, it will be very clear that there is very much, it was very well known that there was a lot of information that was not provided to the FISA court leading up to the warrant on Carter Page. So I don't know exactly who John's sources are, but I do know that we have been trying to get these redactions from emails without looking. It's possible that we are talking about the same types of emails. It's also possible, Sean, that there's even more emails that we don't even know about. But what we are aware of, what I call the fourth bucket of information, it would be very clear that there were people within the FBI and DOJ that knew well and good before they went to the FISA court that Christopher Steele and others were up to some really bad and nefarious activity.
You're saying that these emails would be the fourth bucket, the 302s would be a second bucket, the FISA application themselves, especially the last one, pages 10 through 12, 17 to 34, then the Gang of Eight information, those would be the four buckets. What John is saying here...
That's correct. And those first three, remember, Sean, in those first three, the president has actually called to have declassified.
But he's holding it back, he now recently said...
is this fourth bucket.
Okay, so what I want to ask you is, if they knew, and if the Intelligence Committee knew that they were questionable, that the whole dossier was questionable, and it was the bulk of the FISA applications, and they used it anyway. We know that they omitted that Hillary bought and paid for it with a footnote that said it might have a political taint to it, but they didn't say it was the opposition party candidate. Is it possible that they knew it was not true, that they gave it to the FISA court anyway, that they didn't do their due diligence, verify and corroborate it, and that they totally and completely committed fraud on the FISA court, not once but four separate times, meaning anybody that signed off on it was signing off on an application to spy on an American with evidence that they, at best, thought could very likely not be true?
Yeah, so remember what we've been looking at criminally has been abuse of power, whether or not there was a conspiracy to abuse power. You know about that. You've talked about that for a long time. What this gets into is this would be the first clear evidence that we have on another major crime, which would be called lying to a federal judge, which is a crime and a major crime. So that is
But that
really
would
at
mean,
the
but
heart
the
of
people
this.
we're talking
If
about would
these
be
do
Comey.
exist, it is the evidence that we have.
This would be Comey signing off on it. Rod Rosenstein signing off on the last one. That
Well,
would be Sally Yates signing off on it, right?
Well, they're the ones that signed off on it, but they're not necessarily the ones who would have provided and doctored the information. So really the people that are culpable here are the ones who were in these discussions that knew about the information that was not provided to the court.
Even though Adam Schiff, who I have a lot of issues with, will be the chairman of the committee come January, will you still have the authority and the ability to get this information to the American people?
Yeah, I mean, the only difference is that I will be the Republican leader on the committee. The question is that the subpoena power will lay in the hands of the Democrats.
But the Senate would have the power too, as well.
Like I've said, that's true. But we have also, for many months here, Sean, been willing to. We've said that, look, our investigation's over with. The White House is going to be able to declassify a lot of this information to help us out to get to the bottom of this.
All right. Congressman Nunes, you've done great work. So has John Solomon. If so, that basically what I said is true. That is, there is no equal justice, equal application of our laws. That would be shredding, literally shredding, if you're giving false information to a court to obtain a FISA warrant to spy on an American and not even verifying it. Wow. Michelle Malkin debates an immigration activist about the crisis at our southern border. That's next on this Breaking News Night. Also later, a school principal trying to ban candy canes because it has a J shape and it might have to do with Jesus. Steve Doocy, Ainsley Earhart are here in studio to react. Straight ahead.